Have you been missing out on holiday cheer while worrying over which whiskeys to add to your Christmas list this year? Well, never fear, Old St. Cyr is here with the 12 Days of Whiskey's Christmas series. Stay tuned for the first day. Welcome to a jolly showdown like no other, the 12 Whiskeys of Christmas. I'm Cyncere, and throughout this series, we're going to be bringing the spirit straight to your glass. For the next 12 days, I'll be judging 2 or more whiskeys each show to determine if they should make the naughty or the nice list. Hopefully, through all the shenanigans, I can help you uncover what whiskey deserves a spot on your holiday wish list. So whether you're cozying up by a fire or hosting a large festive gathering, join me for a sip-by-sip exploration of some of my favorite and maybe a couple of my least favorite whiskeys. Let's get started. On the first day of whiskey, my true love gave to me 2 bourbons from BT. Oh my, it's like Christmas morning and Santa has definitely put me on the nice list. 2 bourbons from the Buffalo Trace Distillery, not much more I would have asked for. Yes, I know I talk about Buffalo Trace a lot. I also know that this isn't the most popular Weller expression. So before you decide to bless me with your bundles of negativity on my collection and my selection, save it. Santa sees everything and he is watching. Not to mention your shelf elves and your snoops on the stoop. All right, enough of hallmarks in. Let's get down to business. Weller Special Reserve and Buffalo Trace. What could possibly go wrong? Nothing unless you get buyer's remorse from overpaying for them here and there like I tend to do. These smooth operators both come in at a made-to-sip neat 90 proof. I've mixed both of these in quite a few cocktails, but I do prefer both of them. They substitute wheat for the rye in the Weller mash, which is also the same mash they use for Pappy. Obviously, they're aged for different amounts of times, and they're also in different warehouses. Buffalo Trace, on the other hand, shares the mash with Eagle Rare and Benchmark, which is mash bill 1, and it's their low rye content mash. Leave a comment below if you've ever made Poor Man's Pappy. If you don't know what Poor Man's Pappy is, it's Weller 12 and Weller Antique 107 blended with 40% Weller 12, 60% Antique 107. As you can see, this bottle is unopened. I did recently finish off my main bottle of Buffalo Trace while watching the Lakers take home the win the other night. So I will be operating out of my airplane bottle for tonight so I don't have to open up my backup. Shameless plug to my little bro, though. If you are still babysitting your extra bottle of Buffalo Trace, please send it to the Simple Whiskey Show. Now on to your regularly scheduled programming. Speaking of plugs, I was lucky enough to get this bottle of Weller from my plug in West Virginia. Shout out to my boy Vance, always coming through with some of the bourbons I can't find down here in Virginia that he can scoop up there. I'm admitting we paid more than what we should have paid for him. But like Drake and Lil Wayne once said, YOLO, let's get to sipping. So the way that this is going to work, I'm going to nose both of these, take my initial sip, give you guys some feedback, put a little bit of water in each, give some more feedback. Then I'm going to make a determination as to whether or not they make the naughty or the nice list. Let's go. First sip of the night from the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Let's start with the Weller. I definitely get like a sweet caramel. Let's try the Trace. So the Buffalo Trace gives me more of a, they both give off a sweet nose, but this one is more like, almost like a caramel, maybe even like a molasses or something. Something a little bit richer than just caramel. Almost like a spearmint, like a sweet, juicy fruit meets Wrigley spearmint. Let's go in for the sip. For the first sip of the night, that's extremely light. Usually, before I do any of my videos, or even if I'm getting ready to taste something with a higher proof, I'll start with something like Buffalo Trace. But I think that as light as this is, that this would be a good one to start with as well. I seem to get more of that butterscotch. Maybe it was butterscotch I was smelling on this one, not necessarily caramel. like a subtle oak flavor. Let's try to trace. Man, that's tough. As much as I love me some Buffalo Trace Original, they're very similar, yet unique. I get more of a deeper oak on this one, nowhere near as strong as a higher proof double oak or anything like that. But to me, this one gives me more of like a Heath candy bar without the chocolate, like the Heath, the toffee. It's in the middle of a Heath bar. It's kind of what I get on this. The finish is a little bit more of a lingering finish than what I get on the Weller. But overall, good sips. Let's try them with water. So the nose opens up just from probably about the equivalent of a cap full of water is what I put in here. But you can definitely get the notes a lot stronger. Maybe next video I'll bring my frother back out and froth the two whiskeys that I compare. So the noses. So the nosies. So the nose on both of these is similar to what it was when I first poured them, but the prominence in the caramel and the butterscotch or toffee in this one, and the caramel in this one is a lot more prevalent. I will say I don't get as much of that oaky scent that I got on the initial nose as well. So now let's try a sip. And this is the Weller. So it did open up the flavors a little bit. I'm getting something sweet, maybe like a honey note that I didn't pick up on the first time. But I will say the finish on it diminishes when I added the water. I don't get nowhere near as long of a finish on this one as I did on the initial neat pour. Let's try to trace. Still get my caramel. The finish is just as long as it was. So for some odd reason, the finish held up better on the Buffalo Trace with the water than the finish on the Weller with the water. But potato. I do think that I get more of a brown sugar note on the palate versus just the caramel. And the oakiness on this one still is light to medium. But classic American bourbon flavors, nothing extraordinary. I just like both. Well, primarily I like the Buffalo Trace just because it's an easy sipper, but the Weller on the other hand, I just tried this over Thanksgiving for the first time, and this will become one of my other ones, but I feel like I can always find Buffalo Trace somewhere. It's just a matter of what I'm willing to pay for it. And then this Weller, we lucked up and got it. So this bottle will probably stay at where you see it right here for quite a while. I plan on just sharing it as people come and want to try something outside of my normal Buffalo Trace. So we're going to switch things up a little bit. And instead of doing a simple breakdown, I'm going to do what's called a simple listing, since we're going to be putting them on the naughty or nice list when we're done. So up first, Weller Special Reserve, around $27 MSRP. Yes, I paid about $70 for it. Again, shout out to Vance for finding them. I don't think I'll pay $70 ever again for it. It's very similar to Buffalo Trace, super smooth, 90 proof. So at the end of the day, I just don't see myself paying $70, even if it's for a backup bottle. Secondary pricing, I've seen it. I paid $70 as I mentioned, but I've also seen it as high as $100, which is just outrageous. I think that there comes a point where people should say, hey, double at most should be secondary. Just because you can't find it doesn't mean that you should pay 4 times MSRP. Proof on this one, as I mentioned, 90 proof, distillery, Buffalo Trace Distillery. Yes, the tater in me says I love all things Buffalo Trace. I've yet to meet a Buffalo Trace product I didn't like. Nope, I take that back. Maybe my next video will be on the one Buffalo Trace product that I did not like when I first sipped it. It is behind me in this, looking at my monitor, it is behind me on my shelf right now. So, we shall see. Simple list. Where am I placing this? Is this naughty? Is it nice? I'm going to place it on the nice list with a caveat. It's on the nice list only if you can find it for no more than double MSRP. So if you're paying more than $55 for this bottle, I'm going to put it on the naughty list just because I feel like people shouldn't charge that much, even though I paid that much. So look at it this way. I bought it on the naughty list. I recommend you buy it on the nice list. Final thoughts on the bottle. Overall, this would be good if you wanted to mix it in a cocktail. I typically go with 100 proofs or more if I'm going to mix in a cocktail, just because I want to get more of the whiskey or bourbon flavor whenever I'm sipping on a cocktail. But this one, I do feel like you could probably do a good old fashioned with it. It does have a lot of good sweet notes. It'll mix good with your simple syrup, your Luxardo cherries, or orange, or however else you want to make your old fashioned. I would be curious as to if anyone has ever had this in a smoked old fashioned, because the light oakiness that I get on this, some of my smoked old fashions go pretty much to crap when I have a super oaky bourbon. But I've noticed when I get that lighter oak on them and add that smokiness to it, it does enhance the flavor of some of my old fashions. So leave me a comment below if you've ever tried this in a smoked old fashioned. On to the next simple listing. All right, first love of bourbon, as always for me, Buffalo Trace. MSRP around $27-28. Secondary pricing, I've seen the little bottles for $55. I've also seen the larger bottles for closer to $65-70. Proof, 90 proof. Distillery is on the name of the bottle, Buffalo Trace. As for which list, no surprise for anybody who's watched any of my other videos where I've even mentioned Buffalo Trace. This is on my nice list all day, every day. I will say, unlike the Weller, I will pay more than double for this if I'm completely out and it seems to have been a drought. At the moment, I have quite a few of these airplane bottles. I will continue to pick these up while they still have them in stock. And then I'll keep this one closed and sealed up. That mitigates the chances of me going out there and paying $70 for a $27 bottle of whiskey. Hit me in the comments, call me a tater, beat me over the head, whatever you want to do. This is one of my favorite, I'll just say entry-level bourbons, solely because it's not super complex, it's not over-the-top expensive, and the smoothness that you get on it is just something that I keep reaching for as one of my go-to sippers. All right, as we wrap up each of these bourbon duels as I continue with my 12 days of whiskey, remember, the only right bourbon is the bourbon you like. It does not matter how you drink it, whether it's neat, on the rocks, or in a cocktail. Your palate, your choice. It's not a campaign ad, I promise. But looking at these two, a little friendly competition, never hurt anyone. I enjoyed both of these bottles. I still rock with both of them. No clear-cut winner. Yes, I have a love for Buffalo Trace. Yes, I'm slowly getting into all things Weller. I'd love to try the Antique 107, which is what a lot of people say is one of the better ones. So I'm sure 2024 holds many new bottles for me, hopefully, and we'll see what kind of Weller I can come up with in the new year. If you have a favorite bourbon you'd love to see in the ring, drop it down in the comments. Let me know what you want to stack up. Given it is the holiday season, not sure what I'll be able to pick up if it's not something that I already have on my shelf. But I'd love to know your opinion and what you're interested in pitting against one another. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for all things simple whiskey as well as 12 days of whiskey. May your holidays be filled with warmth, laughter, and a dram or two of your favorite bourbon. Cheers to a spirited holiday season, and I'll catch you in the next one. Keep it simple.